Episode 88 of Outlander Cast is brought to you by minutewithmary.com. You want to go check it out and get yourself some great makeup and skincare products? Well, you can do that at minutewithmary.com.
Don't walk away, Claire. It's time we dealt with this like adults.
As opposed to the way that I've been dealing with it.
Please stop. And talk to me.
And say what, Frank? What is it that you want from me?
I want to know when you're going to come back from the fucking past.
You asked me to leave behind everything that truly mattered to me. And yet it's fine for you to go on about the things that you've missed in the good old days. Never talk about the past. That was the bargain. And I've kept that bargain to the letter.
No, the bargain was that we raised this baby together. Our child hasn't even been born yet. And you will not let me in, let alone touch you, God forbid.
All the way from Cranston, Rhode Island, welcome to Outlander Cast. It's a podcast dedicated to the show Outlander on Starz.
Sing me a song of a lass that is gone. Say, could that lass be I? Mary of soul, she sailed on a day over the sea to
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. If you're new, welcome. My name is Mary Larson, and I'm your host.
My name is Blake, and I've never hated a lady from Boston so much in my life. That lady sucks.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? I was watching her, and I was like, she's my spirit animal. That's exactly what I would do if I saw a pregnant lady try to carry wood inside of her house. Do you deny it?
Nobody in Boston is that nice.
Well,
Nobody,
in Rhode
not
Island,
one person.
there is.
Not one person is that nice.
Okay, in Boston, probably not.
Oh, my
Blake, of course,
goodness.
is from Boston, so if anyone listening is from Boston, please do not take offense. Please do not take offense.
No, it's okay.
Blake's just offending himself.
Yes,
All right,
I am.
So we always start things off in Outlander Cast after each episode by rating the show, giving it a kilt rating, a 1 out of 5. 1 meaning that was a terrible episode, 5 meaning that's one of the best. That's one of the best. So
Right.
Blake, how many kilts would you give episode 301?
I'm giving it 4.99 kilts.
You just changed that from what it said in the Google Doc.
I did. You want to know why I changed
Tell me
it?
why.
Because of the neighbor. The neighbor pissed me off so much. I couldn't handle the neighbor anymore. I just can't. I can't. But I will say that was nearly a perfect episode of Outlander. Nearly. I can't imagine a better one. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, so why didn't you give it a 5?
Except for Dragonfly and Amber, I gave that 5 kilts.
Okay.
Loved that episode. And of course, as we all know, my true love of the Garrison Commander. We all know. So I would say that it's at least on par with those episodes, except for the neighbor. Just no
But
go
the
on
neighbor's
that
like me.
Yes, but well, we'll get into that in a little bit. My darling, how about you? What is your kilt rating? Let me guess. It's gonna be 5.
Of course it is. Of course it is. If I could give it a 55, I'd give it a 55. This episode knocked it out of the ballpark. And it needed to, because that was a darn long Droughtlander. That was so flipping long, and I was like, it better be good, it better be good, it better be good. I mean, I was excited for anything, but this episode gave me all the feels. And I mean all the feels about everybody. So it was a 5.
Right. It was great to see the band back together again, kind of, sort of. A little bit of reunions here and there. And saying goodbye to other characters that needed to be said goodbye to.
Gonlanders.
Namely the Bonnie Prince. Get out of here.
Mark me.
Oh.
He couldn't leave without one last mark me. I was so glad he got that in. Mark me. I'm going to drink out of my sippy cup before this is over. We'll see about that, Bonnie Prince.
The sippy cup my daddy gave me.
My daddy gave me. Mark me.
Mark me.
Mark me.
Let me use my daddy's gold cup.
I was like, you and that sippy cup. You better simmer down.
What a dink. I still hate that character. And if I see Andrew Gower in real life, I'm not going to punch him in the face.
No,
but I'm just going to be like, bro, calm down with the mock me's and calm down.
It was perfect because
Calm down with your
made
face.
I was, the first time I watched the episode, I was like, wow, the Bonnie Prince didn't say "mark me" once, and then I watched the second time. I was like, oh nope, there it was.
Right.
It was. They had to
Right.
put that in. So listeners weighed in. I know we have people on our Facebook chat weighing in right now with their kilt ratings, and we had several people weigh in our clan gathering.
By the way, let's just talk about this for the podcast listeners right
Yes.
now. We are doing a Facebook Live in the Outlander Cast Clan Gathering Facebook group that you and I have created. So if you do want to get just a fly in the wall experience of this show and how we create this podcast, you get to see all of it, warts and all, and everything that we screw up and how we screw it up and the things that we say and how we interact. You can go to the Outlander Cast Clan Gathering and check us out there for the next episode. And hopefully we'll be doing every single episode for this season.
As long as our children are sleeping, but we do have some sitters lined up, so that should help too.
But again, this podcast and this show is always intended to be consumed via your podcast app. So the Facebook Live listeners who are watching us right now will get no particular special treatment. But this is for you, the podcast listener. But thank you for everybody joining us live as we do this right now.
Super exciting.
It's something new. I thought it'd be fun to try out.
New
this
for
year.
season 3.
Why
Let's
not?
do it.
Let's do it. All right. So, my darling, what do we got for the listeners' kilt
Barbara
ratings?
Levitt said that she gives it 1 gazillion kilts. It surpassed her
Wow.
expectations. She loved every second of it. Suzanne Cole Rice said, wow, so many emotions. I love the battle and the aftermath. I am so glad that they did the whole scene of the men found in the building. Hal is great. I knew when Claire woke up after the birth, she would go, where's my baby? And Suzanne said she started to cry, as did I. Gave it 5 kilts. So glad Outlander is back, she says. And boy, were we all wrong about the trailers.
Wait, what about the trailer? What are we wrong about? I think I was pretty right about the trailers.
We'll find out.
Well, I guess so.
Interestings, right, guys?
Megan Rose Pass says 5 kilts. By the way, I think that was our first 1 gazillion kilt rating that we've ever had.
I would agree.
Here you are watching live a first for Outlander Cast. Megan Rose Pass says 5 kilts. That episode will be hard to top emotionally until the print shop. Hands down, the most emotionally affected I've ever been from this show. I have a headache. I absolutely loved every second of it. Bawled with
Right,
Rupert.
right.
Having Rupert there was the first change that I thought was a real improvement from the books, and the portrayal of Frank makes for an extremely compelling television. Tobias is a genius, and I cannot rave enough about this episode, so I'll just have to watch it again.
Amen, girlfriend. And Nicole Jaragui, I need glasses. I need my glasses on.
Jargui?
Jargui says that she gives it a 2 out of 5.
Ooh.
The battle scenes, says Nicole, were lackluster. The fight with Blackjack was so anticlimactic for such a villain. Frank is right. Claire is not obligated to stay. Sam Hewen's performance was meh. Katrina's is way ahead of him in that regard. So, we got a lot.
Wow.
I mean, I would say
We
that
went from-
95%, 99% of the comments were on the 1 gazillion kilt, and there were a few people, and to be honest, I feel like the ones that were complaining about Culloden. Yeah,
Which I'm surprised about.
if I saw complaints, it was often about Culloden. So, so
Right.
some people really had mixed feelings about that. So
We went from the gamut. We went from 1 gazillion to 2.
Yeah.
So, I am surprised about that. I thought, for the most part, everybody loved this episode.
it was
like you
either
said.
that or they were mad because they're like, "Where's Murtaugh?"
Right.
So that was another reason some people.
But
were-
I got a theory on that, so we'll
Ooh,
get to that.
We're gonna
in a
get
little
to that.
bit.
How exciting!
What do you got for your GBG? The
Do we
good.
not have music for this part?
No, we don't.
We
We
need to
don't.
get some music for the GBG. So if you're brand new to Outlander Cast, hello, welcome, super excited. And also I'm a book reader and Blake is a show watcher.
Right.
He has just started to read just the first book of the Outlander series, Outlander, but he has no idea what comes in the future. So this podcast is safe and spoiler free for those of you who have not yet read.
By the way, shameless plug. I am, like you said, reading the first book of Outlander and only the first book of the Outlander series
Right now.
And if you
We'll say.
the only reason why I'm doing that is because the patrons that we have on Patreon made that happen. So if you do want to hear my analysis of the book, chapter by chapter, baby, you can go to patreon.com/outlandercast and sign up to be a patron for as little as $2 per month and hear my chapter by chapter analysis of Outlander. And you can enjoy it just with everybody else that
Yes.
made that possible. So, my darling, Your GBG.
My GBG. So the GBG stands for the good, the bad, and the great of this episode. My good was the men's acting.
Okay.
I love, so very different from what the Nicole had said previously. I loved Kat. I loved Kat's performance in this episode. Claire just really gave me a lot of feelings. But to be honest, I think the men stole the show. I think Sam Heughan brought it to a whole different level that I've rarely seen him at. And I think he's a great actor, but I just think that this episode was unbelievable with what little talking he actually had to do. I think Tobias Menzies, whether as Blackjack Randall or as Frank, was unbelievable. And Rupert, who has been such a wonderful, fun character who we got to have that tender-hearted moment with a while back. But this was wonderful and so exciting for us to get to see Grant O'Rourke do this. So really, my good is the men's acting in this performance. My bad
What do you got?
was Sam Heughan's Adam's apple.
What?
Okay, Sam Heughan is laying down for what, 90% of this episode, and I had no idea how prominent his Adam's apple was, but let me tell you, now that I've pointed it out, when you go rewatch this episode, you are not going to believe it. You're not going to be, it's like a train wreck. You can't stop looking at the darn Adam's apple, because he's not talking, he's just kind of like gulping and like whining, and then it's like, it's so big. It's like if this is his neck, it's like you can't stop.
Wait, what was
that
it like? Okay, good. Just making sure.
So that became distracting to me, and it's not his fault. He can't tell it to go away. It's just his body. But I thought it was a humorous bad because I thought this episode was downright amazing. So I thought I could put that in for the bad. And my great is the fact that season 3 is finally here.
Oh,
now
what
I
a
know
cop-out.
it's not a cop, and I know you were going to say that, but not only is it here, but it was a phenomenal episode.
Yes.
So that's my great, because I was just so excited that it was finally here. I'm so excited they've been building it up with all the PR and the press, and everyone's been ripping to go, and this episode delivered.
Yes,
So
it did.
my great is hell yes episode. Hell yes 301. You did it. How about you? What's your GBG?
My good. I know all of you listeners out there are expecting me to give the great to Tobias Menzies. And you know what? You're not necessarily wrong, okay? And I loved all the interaction with Frank and Claire. I loved it. But the good, and I've gone back and forth on this, was the fight between Jamie and Blackjack Randall. Unbelievable. Beautifully shot. The coloring was spectacular.
Coloring was awesome.
Spectacular with the red hues all throughout the whole entire scene. It was vivid. There's even a point in the scene when all the people that surrounded them are kind of dead on the floor. Now, I'm not sure if that was an artistic choice or they actually filmed it that way with the intent of showing that everybody else died, except for Jamie and Blackjack Randall. Either way, I'm okay with it. But the thing I loved about it was no words. No words. Mm-hmm. Didn't need to have words.
Didn't need it.
Because there are no more words left between the two. It just is them, their hatred of each other. I also think this weird kind of affection almost that Blackjack Randall has for Jamie. And everything is left. It doesn't need to be unsaid. It doesn't need to be said. It is what it is, and now we have to settle it. Beautifully done, and it was real. It felt real. Loved it. The bad. You already know the bad.
Tell me.
You already know the bad.
Oh, the neighbor?
The neighbor. Nobody in Boston is that nice.
I would be if I lived in Boston.
Oh my God. That lady. Not
Did
only
she have
that.
a Boston accent?
No, she didn't have.
She didn't. So
it
she's
was
not
like
from
this-
Boston. That's why. She's not really from Boston. She was probably from the South or the Midwest or Rhode Island. And she probably was like, oh, this poor pregnant woman.
Right. And well, that was 1A. And 1B for the bad is all of the American accents. They're like old-timey. They're like old-timey Hollywood throughout the whole episode. The doctors and the nurses.
Maybe that's how it was back then.
No, it was not like that back then.
We don't know.
Well,
We weren't there.
No. Nobody speaks in that kind of Hollywood-esque old. No, I don't.
Can you try? Let me hear what it would sound like if you were on the set of Outlander, cast in this Boston. If you were in that scene with the boss,
Yeah.
you gotta look good for the boss. How would
Now,
you be
okay,
speaking?
I will say this: the
dean?
the professor from Harvard. I can understand him not having an accent. Maybe he's not from Boston. Number one, number two, you got to sound smart when you're in Harvard. So you can't have the accent. You got to sound like you're kind of froofy, right? I get that. But everybody else, and it's not even that you got to speak like me. It's more like it just sounded old timey. It sounded forced. It sounded like British actors trying to pull off.
Bless their hearts.
I mean, not as bad as Benedict Cumberbatch. I mean, that man is perfect, but his American accent is terrible. But yeah, I hated the neighbor, and I thought that
everyone in the Facebook Live is saying that's how they spoke in the 1940s.
Nobody spoke like that in the 40s.
You don't know. You were not alive.
Get out of here. Hey, this accent didn't come from nowhere. It just didn't happen in like the 80s. I don't know where
that accent came from. Came from somewhere.
The great is Michael O'Halloran.
Tell me.
Do you want to know who Michael O'Halloran is? He is the editor of this episode.
Did a darn good job, right, guys?
That first, I would say, I don't know, 5, 7, 8 minutes of this episode. I was talking to one of our writers for the blog staff, Denise, before we started recording, and she's like, hey, did you see the episode? Did you like it? Yes. And I said, as soon as I saw that first 5 to 8 minutes,
yes,
I knew we were getting the goods. I knew that this episode was going to be fracking awesome.
Yep.
And the first official one of the season.
We have to go back, Kate.
Oh, no, that's the wrong one.
I was just going to say, why is there a Lost reference already?
So say we all.
There we go. I knew we were going to get the fracking goods because the way that it was all edited together with Jamie and laying down and the battle scenes and showing snippets and then having the fight with Blackjack Randall and then editing in Claire walking down with, I mean, that's all direction. That's writing too. So, I mean, if I really had to say it, it's probably the first 5 to 8 minutes is the great. That whole snippet of the show blew me away, and it got the episode started off on the right exact foot, which was all character based.
Yep.
And that is when I knew this is when we're going to have it. This is it. So, are you ready to get into the analysis of this episode, my darling?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. All right, so this episode was the premiere of Outlander Season 3, entitled The Battle Joined, written by Ron D. Moore, RDM himself, directed by Brendan Mayer, who is kind of a no-name director, hasn't really done a whole ton. He has directed some episodes of that show Strike Back on Showtime, a very visceral show if you have not gotten a chance to see it. Very visceral. And also some Spartacus episodes and some TV movies of Spartacus. And the director-photographer is also a little bit of a change. Again, another no-name here, Alistair Walker, who has done the DP work on Moondogs with the director Philip John.
Oh, hey.
The director of some previous episodes of Outlander, so that's probably how you have that connection here. And then he also did a movie called Castles in the Sky, which takes place in World War II and whatever. Just a side note here, Alistair Walker, no-name director of photography.
Okay.
Phenomenal job this entire episode.
Truly.
I mean,
Truly.
The battle scenes, again, we already talked about the red coloring in the battle with Blackjack and Jamie, but we also have this beautiful blue look with Claire coming down on the battlefield. Also, Frank at night with the light shining down on his face.
Yes.
And then also when Jamie is riding in the cot with a cot of hay going back to Lallybroch, you seeing the sunset coming running across with the cot. Just gorgeous stuff. Gorgeous. That might be my most favorite DP work yet of Outlander.
Right.
Even beating my good friend Steve McNutt. I called him up. I said, "Hey, Steve, listen, I'm going to have to say some things on the podcast here. I'm not sure if you're going to like it." And he told me he was going to be okay. But Alistair Walker, great job. Great
Truly.
job. So, my darling, how are we going to attack this episode today?
So, of course, this episode was about battles, but I also felt like it was... it ended with families. So I want to really start things off with the battles and then ending with the families, if you're okay with that. And I thought we could start things off with Culloden.
Yes, let's do it. I'm totally in.
Awesome.
I'm
All right.
totally in.
So we're gonna just break it down. I know sometimes we've gone like piece by piece, or we go kind of chronologically through the episode. But I just want to really focus on what happened at Culloden right now, without really talking about Claire and Boston. We'll get to that. But just the fight. That fight. How many did they say that they were filming that fight for? Was it?
Oh, I think it was.
9?
I think it was 5 to 8 days, or maybe it was 8 days, or something like that.
Out of control. The amount of extras that they had in
Right.
it, the amount of crew that they had there, working with the different natural lighting, like that sunset time that they had, just so it was perfectly beautiful, and to see how much choreography went into the stunts and the fighting, and really blocking that out so perfectly. The prosthetics, the blood that was constantly going out. I mean, this was such a demanding shoot.
What did you think about the choice to have Jamie remember it in a series of not flashbacks, but just almost visions, having him remember certain spots, certain snippets, as they came to his recollection? Did you like that, or would you rather them play it out like chronologically?
I liked it. Oh, we have clarification. It was 9 days for the first unit, and the second unit had 5 more days there,
okay,
and a
good.
total of 1,100 extras were in that scene of Culloden. At the first time I watched it, I did not like that it wasn't chronological. I really wanted to have the Battle of Culloden be this episode. I was so excited just to kind of see it all unfurl. I thought it was going to be a bit like Preston Pans.
Yes.
And I didn't like that we kept going in and out. The second time I watched it, I loved it. I loved it because of how different it was each time in Jamie's memory, how different it was, whether it was foggy, whether it was just the glimpse, or whether it was the full-out fight with Blackjack Randall. So I personally liked it because it was a surprise every time. I think when we watched Preston Pans, the intensity was up the entire time, and you didn't know what was happening. But this way, it gave you #all the feels. We were able to be scared and be nervous and be anxious, and then there'd be a humorous moment or a light moment in somewhere else.
Having Murtaugh show up.
Exactly. Yes.
And saying you're welcome, and Jamie saying, "Where you been? You having some whiskey?" Like that kind of thing.
You're welcome. I mean, I did. How did you feel about it being shot and edited that way?
Loved it. I loved it from the moment I saw it, because being traditional is one thing. I like traditional. It's safe. It's there. You can see it the way that it's shot, and for the most part, the way that the battle scenes are shot, it's relatively traditional. I mean, there's some shaky cam in there. There's some quick cuts. There aren't long cuts. There's not like one roving shot like you saw in Battle of the Bastards. Let's just say, for example, in Game of Thrones. That battle was made famous because of that one tracking shot behind Jon Snow. This one was done a little differently. It was vivid. It was fast paced, but it was for the most part a steady cam. You could clearly see where everybody was until they finally got into the scrum. And then once you got into the scrum and everybody was doing, hand-to-hand combat, there was a moment there where you were in it with them. You were in it with Jamie. And everybody was falling around, everybody was going around, and then all of a sudden you see Blackjack Randall, and then it all slows down. And I'm glad that we have it from Jamie's perspective, because a battle is a battle is a battle. How many battles have you seen on television? I mean, how many battles have you seen in movies? I mean, name the ones that you can think of that can stand out in your brain. Battle of the Bastards, Saving Private Ryan, the opening montage of D-Day, Lord of the Rings. What's the battle in the second movie? Oh my God!
No, I know which one you're talking about, though. Everyone knows which one you're talking. The second, not Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings, though, the Two Towers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those things. Helm's Deep. There you go. Those are memorable battles because there are. I know, right? Drinking whiskey does not help the memory. Those are memorable battles because there is a storyline attached to them. You are attached to certain characters, and you get a chance to follow them. That's what this battle did. Yes, seeing the charge with the flag and it's watching all these guys get mowed down as they're coming in waves.
Yes.
It was great. But then seeing Blackjack and Jamie fight each other, that was the real emotionality of this episode and the real emotionality of that battle. And without this, I don't think it's as effective. And because of that, I think this was a really great choice because you get it to see from Jamie's perspective. You're in it with him, and then you have this cathartic and emotional buildup of this fight with Blackjack Randall, which, by the way, can I just say, absolutely fantastic. Stunning work. Acting was great, yes. But the way that they choreographed this fight, Jamie gets stabbed in the leg, possibly, I'm not going to say the femoral artery because if it was, he would have definitely bled out. But he got cut in a place that's not healthy for you.
Yeah.
And then Blackjack Randall getting stabbed in the stomach. And then after this, just kind of waving at each other for a little bit, like just tired. And you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Daredevil. Remember that when we watched Daredevil, the fight scene in the hallway?
Yes.
And he was fighting all these guys, and he was like peeling himself off the wall, and he was like dead tired. That's what I felt when I was watching this scene. It felt like it was two guys who really effing hated each other.
Yes.
And the fact that there was no sound, I mean, no dialogue, nothing. And then this one beautiful moment where they just stop, both of them.
Out of exhaustion?
Out of exhaustion, and they both know that this is probably the end. And instead of trying to hack at each other still, Blackjack stops and reaches out to Jamie. And
Tobias.
And then they both collapse. And again, if that was him just doing that, like, holy fracking wow. If that was written, even more holy fracking wow.
Yeah, I think that they said that was ad-libbed by Tobias.
And a beautiful, it really is. I mean, say what you will about Blackjack Randall and say what you will about the relationship between the two, but a beautiful moment for the show. It's memorable. It's something that can get you talking, and it makes it vivid for you, the watcher. What did you think of that? Did you like it as much as I did, the reach out?
I loved that. I loved watching Frank's, just the different things he was doing with his mouth and how he does so much with his eyes. But, he's done so many different things with his hands. We've had all these close-ups of BJR's mouth, of his eyes, of his face, of the things that he touches. He's very tactile, and I loved that because it reminded me of what his hands have done.
Oh, yes. And how he burned Jamie with the seal. You know what I mean?
Like, he's done so much with those hands, especially to Jamie. And
if you remember,
he needed to do it one more time.
If you remember in Untimely Resurrection, when he sees Jamie for the first time after the whole thing, he puts his hand on his chest. Like, oh, man. Just great stuff. What about Murtaugh? Like, let's talk Murtaugh here for.
Let's chat Murtaugh. Okay, so how amazing was that? That was in one of those spots of the show where it was. I'm talking about that anxiety. You're feeling it. The train is going. The fighting is happening. The blood is coming out. The swords are out. All this is going on, and then suddenly Jamie's down, and there's Murtaugh, and they have a humorous moment between them.
Right. Great. Just great.
So great.
That is the mark of great writing, too. Because you can go all in with the drama. You can go in with the action. But when you're able to just insert a tiny bit of humor in there, it doesn't have to be a ton. It doesn't have to be, the Gong Show over here. It just needs to be a little bit to ratchet. It's a perfect way to ratchet up tension, release it, and then ratchet it back up again, only to release it later. That's when you know, as a writer and as a show, you've done the exact right thing. And that's what happened here. Tell me, is Murtaugh dead or is he alive, do you think?
Do I think?
Yes. Now, I know you know from the book, but just from the show's perspective, and I have a theory, but I want to get your idea first. Do you think he's dead or do you think he's still alive?
In the show, what do I think about Murtaugh?
Great radio here.
I think he's dead,
Really?
but I don't because I feel like I don't think we've. How about this? I don't think we've seen the last of Murtaugh.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that means that we will see a dead body of Murtaugh. I don't know if that means that we'll hear from somebody. Oh, hey, we got confirmation. You know, I just don't see him strolling up to Lollybrock anytime soon.
Right.
You know, whistling a little tune. I just don't. But on the flip side, why would they have that moment and then not confirm his death? But you know, when they were saying this, have you seen Murtaugh? Have you seen him? Oh, I lost him. That's real war, man. That is real battle. You are talking to somebody 1 minute and the next minute they're not there and they're gone. You can't find them and you find out they passed. So on the flip side, maybe it would have just been too late out for us if okay, so I think he is dead.
Okay.
I think he is dead. I guess
Okay.
is the long and short. I don't know how I feel about us not knowing, but maybe it would have just been like too spoon-feeding us if they were like, and here's his dead body after that funny little moment. But I just don't see how they're going to bring him back, whistling a little tune, as I said, strolling on up to Lollybrock with a cane in his hand, kind of being all jolly and everything, or how they would kind of confirm it. It's not like they have, you know, the Boston Globe coming over to Lollybrock
Not Claire reading
with the
Globe. obituaries.
obituaries. Yeah. So how about you? What do you think about this? Because it was an interesting situation.
Listen, I will say that I think that he's alive. I've seen in certain comments in the book, apparently he does die in the battle. I've seen those comments on Facebook. I think he's alive, and I think he's alive specifically because we didn't see him. They're essentially doubling down on Murtaugh here. Mm-hmm. They can't just have him die off screen. He's far too more of an important character to the overall show to have him die off screen. Or, better yet, maybe die off screen, but not even show him in this episode. Mm-hmm. Right? And it's not like Jamie's going to be walking the battlefield and see Murtaugh's body, right?
Correct.
It's not going to happen because he's now at Lollybrock. Mm-hmm. So they're doubling down on Murtaugh being alive by not addressing it. They addressed it by saying, I haven't seen him, but not addressing a death or being alive. They didn't show it, and they're leaving it open. So because of that, I think he's alive.
Okay.
Or at the very least, maybe we'll have some sort of vision again from Jamie with Murtaugh. Okay? That's my guess.
That's my best Claire impression, putting my hand on my head and putting my hand out. Yes.
That's my guess. Okay?
Like how he was having them previously. Like when he gets healed, you know, if the healing process starts to happen at Lollybrock, more of it can come back to him, you think?
More of it can come back to
Okay.
him. Maybe he did see Murtaugh. Maybe all those things did happen. It's all possible, but I think he is at least. We're going to see him again at the very least, in my opinion. We're not going to leave that alone. It's like one thing, you know. Forgive me, Scott Kyle, but it's one thing for Ross to die off screen, and then not even.
We need to discuss that.
That
is not okay.
Give me one moment to address this.
I need to add Scott Kyle to this.
I know,
Facebook
hey,
group.
bro, what the hell happened? It's one thing for him to die off screen and then not even acknowledge it. Because he's Ross, and Ross is great. I love Scott Kyle. Great interview, by the way. Shameless plug. Go back and listen to Scott Kyle in our interview with him a few episodes ago. Fantastic. But you can't give Murtaugh the Ross treatment. You got to give him a moment of either death or send off. You have to. He's too important to.
Yeah,
He's too
yes.
important to Jamie, and he's too important to
us
to the viewer. One other thing I wanted to bring up, I'm going to circle back here to Blackjack Randall. He ends up on Jamie, and you know I've seen some comments here that him laying on Jamie prevents the blood from coming out of Jamie.
Ooh.
No. That explanation is almost as bad as the explanation from The Walking Dead on how the guy laying on Glenn. Spoiler alert, prevented him from getting eaten by
zombies.
No, that's
yes.
a bad explanation. The only way to prevent that kind of blood from coming out of your body is a tourniquet. And I can probably tell you Blackjack Randall was not as heavy as a tourniquet.
Hey.
Or it puts that much pressure on a tourniquet. Another problem, and this is a little bit of a nitpicky problem. There is no
You
way.
nitpicky?
There's no way that the British soldiers are going to leave a British officer of Blackjack Randall's ilk just laying on the battlefield. They're going to take their dead. They're going to pick them up and bring them back. So
Correct.
I don't see Blackjack Randall. Like when the guys walked over Jamie and stabbed the other.
They were too busy still killing people first.
Right, but he was there all day and then all night.
Oh, you're right.
Right?
They would have totally picked him up
They
by
would have
then.
picked him up by then. So, I mean, it's a great moment. I love seeing it and having that little
Unless
reveal.
he told all of his friends, hey, the guy who I like totally have a crush on is here. So if you see us together, don't disturb us.
Just we're in a moment.
Creepy BJR. You're right. They would have totally picked him up.
They would have picked him up.
We will just ignore that.
But I'm going to ignore that.
Okay.
But Sam's acting in these moments of watching the guy get stabbed and pretending that he is dead, and then having the reveal of Blackjack Randall and the whole thing, just brilliant stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now let's address Ross. Let's
everyone's
address
saying
Scott Kyle.
Ross was going back to Lallybroch, so we don't need to worry about him. But I will. That he was on his way back. Remember when Jamie's like, "Okay, everybody, you guys go back. This is not good.
Yeah.
My peeps need to head back to Lallybroch." So everyone says Ross is going back to Lallybroch, but I really would have preferred that he take over that role of Killick. So because he was having those moments with Rupert at the door, like, should we go? Should we run? And he had the freaking ponytail. I was like, oh my gosh, is this fake Ross? Is this, the Ross sub? And having those moments with Jamie. And so part of me really wished that character was Ross, because I don't know this guy. I don't know why he's having precious moments with Jamie right now, saying, can we write a letter to your wife? I mean, yes, we need to know that Jamie was with all these people and these are moments, but there was a little part of me that just kept saying, I wish this was a different guy in a ponytail. I wish this was Ross.
Right. And because it would have made sense for the interaction with Rupert. Like you already have that emotional investment in Ross from season 2. You already have that moment of he and Rupert singing together after both of their buddies die. They picks him up and says, okay, see you later. And he's there with Jamie. Like, he doesn't necessarily know Jamie a whole ton, but he can at least speak with him with familiarity. And it's not to say that I didn't appreciate what this guy Killick did and the actor did. I think he did a great job. It was awesome. It just talking about his family and good stuff. And should I write a letter and yada yada yada. But it would have been better with Ross. The only argument that I can make in not having it be Ross,
aka Scott Kyle,
is because, again, you do have that emotional connection to Ross, albeit a little one, but you still have one from the previous season. If you have Scott Kyle or Ross go out first and get executed the way that Killick did, does that, do you think, take away from the execution of Rupert, the emotionality of that moment? Do you think it deflates the moment of Rupert getting executed? Because I got to tell you, when Rupert gets executed, his bit of humor involved in it too, and volunteering and saying farewell to Jamie, that got me emotional.
Yeah,
that got me emotional. And shameless plug, go listen to our interview with Grant O'Rourke from a couple episodes ago on outlandercast.com. Do you think that is the only reason why that would be okay, to not have...
I think you're onto something there, because if Ross, this character that we got attached to last season, just got shot, then we'd have Rupert. I mean, we would have already been crying, but we didn't really know Killick that well, so I didn't cry for him.
He's a log carrier.
I'm sorry, Killick. I didn't cry for you. I would have been crying for Ross, and you're right. Maybe it would have overshadowed the feelings that we would have gotten for Rupert talking about snoring and farts. Did you talk about farts? I feel like you talked about farts. Okay, yeah.
Snoring and farting in the middle of the night.
Yeah, so maybe we wouldn't have been able to laugh had that been Ross.
Right.
Maybe we wouldn't have been able to have that little jovial moment, because we would have been mourning Ross's death and that precious time that these two characters just had shared recently in season 2 about being alive and losing their friends. So you're right. On the flip side, if it had been Ross, we wouldn't have been able to laugh as much with Rupert. We probably wouldn't have had all the feels for Rupert because we would have already been sad about
But I
Ross.
will say this too. Again, this whole idea of tension and ratcheting it up for this guy Killick dying, and all of a sudden Rupert coming over saying hi to Jamie and then talking about snoring and farts and laughing and ratcheting up the tension, bringing it back down again, only to ratchet it back up again, only to bring it back down when he's like, all right, come on, guys. I'm on a quick pace here. Let's go. Let's get it done. And then Jamie sitting alone, listening to the whole thing, and then not even showing it, not even showing the execution. That is why this episode was so effing brilliant.
Yes.
Because, number one, it was character-based. Everything that happened, except for one minor thing, which I'll get into, everything that happened was character-based, meaning all the decisions, everything that was written, it was written as though the characters were writing it themselves. It was natural. It wasn't like, hey, I need one thing to happen and I can't get this organically. So guess what? This happens. That's a plot decision. Character moments, talking about snoring and farting, like that kind of thing. Those are character things.
Yeah.
The no dialogue between Blackjack Randall and Jamie. Just and that quick bend that for those listening to the podcast, unfortunately you're not going to be able to see it, but like that bend of a movement from Blackjack Randall when he sees Jamie, that subtle movement, like
after he's pulled off the horse and he like shakes off 4 fellas,
right,
and then it was a little like ooh,
and like a movement like
Matrix move,
there you are, like oh my god, my man crush on Tobias Menzies knows no bounds. Knows no bounds.
It's true.
Anyway, character moments. And the episode was patient with itself. It didn't rush to get anywhere. It stayed on Jamie's face. It stayed on him breathing. It stayed
the Adam's apple.
on the Adam's apple. It stayed on Claire walking through the dead bodies in his vision. It didn't just show up all of a sudden. She was there. She walked towards him. It was patient with Jamie's face as the execution of Rupert happened. Just watching him and his subtle movements as the gunshots go off.
Yeah.
And it was patient with Rupert. Like, it shows Rupert after they get discovered and he's sitting there next to the door opening. And you see a guy on a pole and you're like, what's happening here? And all of a sudden, boom, he gets shot and it stays on Rupert the whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy, Brendan Mayer, a lot of people ask me, what do you look for when you're talking about directors? And these are the things that you look for. How is a picture framed? How the guy on the pole in the background with Rupert in the foreground. Later on with Claire and Frank as they're in the apartment and the poles are between them, signifying that there is this wall between them the two that cannot be broken. Though being patient on faces, close-ups, these are the things that you want to look for.
Yes.
These are the things that make episodes great. And that is exactly what this episode had. And
correct.
Oh my goodness, was it great. But I know what you're thinking, my darling.
Me? I don't think you know what I'm thinking, but continue.
What was the one small thing that I did not like that was plot-driven? I know you know what it is. I know you know what it is.
It wasn't the neighbor? You've already complained about the neighbor.
No, that neighbor is just annoying.
Oh, okay.
No, plot-driven. Remember.
The dragonfly and Amber?
No. That's also character-based.
Okay.
It's coincidence, but it's character-based. The one thing that I didn't like, when you have to get one thing, you have no real organic way to get it there, so you have to come up with a plot device to get it to that point.
Yeah.
Lord Melton.
Oh. No.
All of a sudden, Jamie, this is the problem. Jamie has to get rescued. Jamie has to live.
The
so
universe
how does he live?
provides, Blake. You
Yes,
need to
the
start
universe is
researching
mysterious.
the law of attraction a bit more.
Universe is mysterious. Totally get it. And it's mysterious in the best of ways.
Just accept it.
But it just so happens that this guy happens to be the brother of a guy who happened to be there with James Fraser, who just happened to walk on him taking a piss, and it just happened to have his arm broken by James Fraser, and who just happened to say, I owe you my life. Plot, but you know what? I'm willing to look past it. I'm willing to look past it because the show must go on.
Good, I'm glad. As must the series go on.
So, I mean, I think we've talked pretty extensively here about Culloden.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to address about Culloden?
One of the other things that I thought was interesting that we learn by the soldiers when they come in is how big of a deal Jamie is. Because, you know, we've recently come from France with all of that tomfoolery and chess playing that happened in France. And then we had Preston Pans and we've had the build up to Culloden. But to have that moment to be like, that's Red Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wow, this is a really big deal. And that's when I think it really got to hit us that Jamie isn't just, you know, king of men in all people's eyes that get to watch the show. But no, he's a really big deal. Like, he is highly sought after. This is a big deal guy to get after. And I think that was really important for them to put that in. So I was really happy that they were able to acknowledge that. Of course, yeah, he gets back to Lallybroch. I don't know how he survives with his leg during that journey. But there was one moment that I didn't like is he gets back to Lallybroch and we get to see Jenny and Ian. And that was just so amazing and lovely. But at the very end, Jenny and Ian, they're kind of reaching into the wagon, and all of a sudden, you see Jamie kind of like lean over and like give Jenny a hug, and I thought, how could Jamie move? if you watch it, he's kind of got he's like halfway up, and I'm like, Jamie, you would not be able to do that, man. They're gonna have to pull you out. You can't be leaning up.
One thing I wish that they had done in the show was lean in a little bit more to the Red Jamie stuff, because, you know, as a viewer...
Just hold on tight, Spider-Man.
No, I know, but I mean, as a viewer, like, I know what the book readers are like, Red Jamie did all this stuff, like, but as a viewer, I haven't seen that stuff.
No, I know, and that's why I'm saying it's okay. I'm just saying take a deep breath.
Right.
That's why I'm glad they planted those seeds now.
Okay.
So I'm saying they handled that well. So as just a show watcher, what you got was good.
Yes.
And it set it up because I think you need to know that about Jamie. I think you need to know he's a big deal, and that he is well known.
I mean, they probably know that he is connected with the Bonnie Prince. Like, they must know that. So that may be why he's so famous among the English soldiers, English officers, and he's on the big posters, and that's what they mentioned about, you know, taking these famous prisoners and yada. Okay, I get it. I just wish I'd seen more of Red Jamie. By the way,
you will.
Seeing the Bonnie Prince with his dad's cup.
His sippy cup?
His dad's sippy cup.
Mock me.
And mock me, Jane. Like, F you, bro. Like, oh my God, I hate him. I hate his face. I hate the Bonnie Prince.
You're supposed to.
I was so glad he got it in the head. Like, just seeing that look right before... you know, like that last frame of the Bonnie Prince, that stupid, dumbfounded look that Andrew Gower has.
Show me it. Yeah.
Like that, I'm so glad he got it in the head. I'm so glad I got a chance to see it with his stupid sippy cup. I'm just, oh my God, that was great for me. And it was great. It's great to say goodbye. Get out of my life.
Au revoir.
Get out of my show.
Ciao.
I don't want you in my show anymore. It's almost like cutting ties with season 2 a little bit. That's the way that it felt to me. Yeah. Like, it was almost like this moment of the show, like kind of saying to its viewers, listen, I know season 2 wasn't the greatest season we've ever written in our lives. We get it.
It was beautiful. It
looked great.
Beautiful.
Looked great. France looked stunning. And the Comte, handsome man. Even I questioned my sexuality a little bit for the Comte. What was Weber? Stanley Weber. He, handsome man. But I think even the writers know it wasn't their best work. So it almost felt to me like this is us cutting ties with season 2 and saying goodbye. We're moving on here. We're moving on to bigger and better things. And they did it. They came off such a great emotional high with Dragonfly and Amber, the season 2 finale. And I was worried. I was worried that they weren't going to have they weren't going to build up. They weren't going to build on that momentum. They needed this episode to be fracking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And they came through in spades.
That they did.
They came through in spades.
All right. Think I'll go to Boston.
Let's do it. Think I'll go to Boston.
You're so tone deaf, it kills my soul a little bit. I was like trying to groove to it. I was like, none of it was right. Okay, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you for it. Guess what?
What?
Can you sing the I'm Blue song? You could probably do that.
I'm blue, I would die. If I was green, I would die. If I was green, I would
Claire's
die.
constantly in blue.
Yes, she is. And Jamie's constantly in red, BT dubs.
He's in blood.
Yeah, lots of blood.
He's in lots of blood.
Blood everywhere.
But I just loved it. Everything Claire was wearing. That giant moo-moo of a shirt when she was...
Crazy hair, Claire.
Oh my gosh. And it was different shades of blue. It was a blue jacket. It was the blue scarf. It was the blue scarf on her head. It was just all sorts of blue for Claire. And I loved it because, of course, blue has been a big thing for Claire.
Mm-hmm.
But I like to stem it back to the blue vase, the blue vase. And she's got a home now. She's got a home. It's a little weird. It's a little funky. It don't feel perfectly right. And that burner doesn't work. And gosh darn it, that would... make me so mad. Just get a handyman. Just get a handyman, guys. Did they not have those in England?
Can't you go to Craigslist?
I'm sorry we have diapers for tea, but come on. Get a handyman. Fix that. Frank, fix the flippin' sink. Goodness, he is not
man.
handy. But yeah, I loved that. I loved that there was blue. I loved that there was a bird. I still don't fully understand what the bird was about.
Oh, I can tell you. I can't tell you, but I can tell you what I feel.
I feel like we've had bird imagery, so it was just bringing it on back. One of our great blog posts from Kendra, who's one of our blog staff writers, was about the birds. So there's been lots of birds. There's even Column had the birds in the cages, and I didn't know if Claire was looking at it like, here's this bird, and it's flying free, and I've had all these bird things happen to me in Scotland, and I don't feel free at all. So I didn't. What did you think that bird was all about?
That to me was representative of outdoor living. It was representative of her wild life in Scotland. Not necessarily wild, like, oh my God, it's the greatest thing that's ever happened, but like just living on the land, living amongst nature. But yes, it also represents freedom. Like here she is, stuck in Boston, pregnant, third trimester, like the ugly part of the pregnancy. And she's cooking breakfast for Frank, and she's stuck in a loveless on her end marriage when she could be with Jamie, and she is prisoner in this home, and she looks out and sees this bird, and who is able to come in and then fly away.
So we just know that bird symbolism has been a big thing.
Right.
And it will continue to be. And Donna on Facebook did say that Kat did say on Twitter, just remember that bird. It might be explained later.
Oh.
So it's okay that we don't fully know. We've also had another question about the bunny. So just taking a quick moment to go back to Culloden.
Yep.
How there was a bunny on Culloden, and if that meant anything to you.
Yeah, that did. That meant to me, they're around all of this death, and they're around all these people who have created this death, and it feels like the world is over for these guys. Jamie is about to die. He's seeing all these people, and yet there is this innocence of a bunny in this battlefield. The world still goes on. There is life among the ruins. Also, I do feel like that was a bit of a pragmatic thing for the production, meaning you just had all of these flashbacks. You just have this reveal of Blackjack Randall, and there he is laying on Jamie, rolls over, and they show them die. And how are you going to transition from that to Claire walking, right? So you need this kind of break. You need this, again, remember, ratcheting tension up only to deflate it, to only bring it back again. Okay, they did that in perfection this entire episode.
Yes.
And this little bunny thing is that moment of, okay, let's reset everything that we've seen. Let's reset and move forward. Because everything before that was about flashbacks. Now we have to have this stop in the middle and then going forward chronologically, at least in Jamie's time, for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what that was, at least for me.
I liked it.
It feels like a pragmatic thing.
Yeah. It made me think about how, I don't know if this has ever happened to you guys, but whenever I've had something terrible happen in my life, scary, sickness, death, just anything bad, every once in a while I would get shaken up because I'm like, wow, the world keeps on spinning.
Yes.
The world keeps on spinning, and the world is not affected by this small thing. Nature keeps on going. The society will keep on going on. And to me, it was just another reminder that that the world is still spinning, and there's still so much life. You know, we're talking about rabbits and life and spring and all this stuff, that there's still so much life going on. I don't know. It's like a little silver lining to Jamie, but that's how I felt, was just that rabbits don't care. Rabbits don't care. The wind keeps on blowing. The oceans keep on having those waves. And even with Culloden, as dramatic as it can be, a lot of people who watch this show, who read these books, probably didn't even know much about Culloden before they even did. And that's just another way to show you that these battles, these things happen all the time in our world. I mean, think about the genocides that are happening now that we don't even get to think about all this stuff, because the world still keeps on spinning.
Yep.
And we're just little bunnies in our world doing our daily routines.
We're all just bunnies. That's what, if there's anything you take from this podcast, it's just that we're all bunnies, man. We're just bunnies.
You love me.
I love you so much.
Okay, so we got Claire constantly being in blue in Boston. You know who's got baby fever? It's Frank. He is so flippin' excited. If he was
Yes.
modern day, he would be reading all the baby blogs, have every single book, have
would
the entire
totally-
Babies R Us registry.
He would totally be the one being like, we're doing hypno babies.
Oh my God, we're doing hypno babies. We're getting 2 doulas.
Can
the
you
real
talk
doula,
about
the
hypno
backup
babies
doula.
real quick? Because
What?
we went through this hypno babies experience, and I would love for you to describe.
Watching this birth situation ruffled the hippie mama's feathers that I have, because I was all about, I want the natural birth. I want the fake candles. I want Debussy playing. I want water lily pictures. And I got totally sucked into this hypno babies idea where you can hypnotize yourself and you can believe that the contractions are warm hugs, not contractions. They're just warm hugs. So
God.
Blake and I took these courses, and
So
I
full
listened
of
to these
crap.
hypnotized CDs. And yeah, once I started to go into labor and we finally got to the hospital, I yelled at the doctor and I was like, "This is not a warm hug." And she was like, "Yeah, they're not. But nonetheless, I really do think they helped me with my labor. So
They did. I will
They
admit
truly did.
they educated you on labor and the process.
yeah, and I ended up having like
2 kids.
pretty much the burst that I wanted to have, thanks to it, and which is what killed me with seeing these birth scenes for Claire. I mean, we'll just get into that right now.
Yes.
God, you see
Wow.
that guy come in, and it's like, you know, especially mothers nowadays, like we get to know our doctors, we get to know our midwives, we get really attached to these people. I mean, I even got to know our birthing nurses because we visited the hospital so much. We got to know literally the staff that was with us during our birth. And here's Claire and Frank, and they're like, "Where's Dr. Joe Schmo?" And he's like, "I don't know. I don't care." And doesn't even talk to Claire, asks Frank how many minutes between her contractions. And you know he didn't have the contraction app
Oh, no.
that Blake had.
I did.
And I would go, "No,
No, it's coming. It's coming.
okay, it's done. You push it again." And Claire, Claire knows all this stuff that's going on. And remember when we were talking about how weird it was I think it was the trailer, when Frank came in, he said, "Claire, it's a girl." And we were talking about how weird that was, because wouldn't Claire have known? If she had had a girl, wouldn't she have known because she was there? Why is Frank walking in with it? And of course, this is another thing from that time that was so common.
Right.
Is that they would just dope the moms up, let the baby come on out, and the women have no recollection of birth whatsoever. And they wake up to having to find out their gender from their husband or their nurse. And everyone's heart must have just sank at that moment when Claire wakes up. And you could probably have a side-by-side screen experience of the Faith episode, which I still cannot rewatch because it broke my heart so much. And this episode with the expressions, with how she moved her body, thinking that this baby was also dead.
Right. That is terrifying. And because that's I mean, not necessarily what happened with Faith, but like Claire is saying, listen, I can do this. I don't need to be I can make my own decisions, damn it. Thank you very much. And then she gets the shot up. And she just has no clue, just like how she knew with Faith she didn't know with Faith, rather, that she had the baby and is it dead? Like that, oh my God, it sent shivers up my spine just thinking about it because, it takes you back to that episode. It takes you back to that brutal moment. And then, of course, Frank, hashtag Team Frank, man. Hashtag way Team Frank. I love what they've done with Frank on a character level here. Listen, I know all the book readers can't stand when I say I'm Team Frank. I know all the book readers can't stand Frank. I get it, but this is the show. And what the show has done has made Frank a real character, not just some specter for Claire who did bad things. This guy really, really loves Claire. And he makes mention of that multiple times and in subtle ways, too. I mean, telling her, listen, we can do this. We can get the house. It's going to be okay. And, I'll put the study here if that's what you want. I'll love anything that you make. This is what matters. This was our bargain. I want you to want me. The whole thing. Can you tell me one instance in any of the show so far, including this episode, what Frank has done wrong? Can you tell me anything?
In this episode or the show?
The whole show or even this episode. I mean, if you can't think of something that quick off the top of your head, that's saying something. That's saying something. And I get the divide between the book readers and the show watchers.
No.
I get it.
I'm shaking my head saying no. Show Frank.
Yeah. I get the divide.
Gracious.
But the book readers have to accept this fact. In the show, Frank is a good man so far. Maybe he does something. I got a theory. Maybe he does something later on. Maybe there's stuff happening. I get it. But so far, this guy has done nothing but love Claire and love her to the fullest extent he possibly can. And the way she treats him this whole episode.
This episode was not
Claire friendly.
Appealing for Claire.
No, I'm down on Claire right now.
Yeah.
If there was a love power ranking right now, for me, it's Blackjack, and then it's Jamie, and then it's Frank, and then Claire is like below.
I mean, when they first moved in, so they first move into Boston, they're getting into the house, and she's worried that it's too big. She obviously was still really early in her pregnancy. There was very little bump. It's her second child. She'd probably be bumping a little earlier than before, not like the 6-month mark. She's probably showing a little bit, wasn't showing anything. So you can tell that this was, you're rescued. We got you back. We're moving to Boston. This is still really fresh and really new. So I could get why she was a bit awkward. But then they got to make that joke about, his study and all that jazz. Right. Making the eggs and the bacon and having those little light moments. It was so precious.
It was.
And then the flinch.
The
flinch when he tried to touch her belly. And then,
but she even lets him touch her shoulder.
Yes, but the baby isn't his.
No, I know,
so
but I'm saying
that's why, because he'd even said our baby or whatever, and it was like,
And the relief on his face when she says our child,
our child, yeah,
like, oh my God, I mean, just think of that moment when he discovers that she's pregnant and goes and beats the hell out of everything in the other room.
Yeah, he goes to the shed and breaks everything.
And you go from that moment, and you have this arc leading up to this very moment. Finally, she says, "Our child," and then the flinch. It just brings him back to wanting to snap everything apart that he possibly can. And I don't blame him, but the restraint that he has, he's like, okay, all right, well, you know what? We're gonna move on. And you can even see him as she's talking about wanting to become a citizen of the United States. And I really like this country. It's new, and I love new. And I think he's kind of on board with it. I think he's on board until the flinch. That's when he kind of goes back into this defensive moment of being like, well, why don't you like England? Like, what the hell? Like, that's where we come from. Like, what, why? And of course, that conversation, as they even say themselves, isn't about the citizenship.
Yes.
It's about the fact that Claire will not let Frank in.
So the thing we also have to remember is that humans are only pregnant for 9 months.
Right.
She has now spent years with Jamie. She is pregnant with Jamie's child. She feels and believes in every ounce of her being that Jamie is dead.
Yes.
She's also pregnant. And if she's anything
Hormones.
like me, girlfriend goes a little crazy. Little crazy.
Oh, goodness. Little crazy.
I was not a cupcake.
No, you were beautiful. You were
Thank you.
beautiful. You were
Thank
amazing.
you.
Actually, you were relatively good.
I was?
I think you were, honestly. I mean, there were some people out there. I mean, we did have the postpartum depression for you and me, by the way. But I think you were a relatively good pregnant lady, except for waking up in the middle of the night, stretching your neck out like this because of the hot burn.
Saying I was a dragon. Yeah, so I mean, I'm keeping this in perspective. Because she was. What bothers me and what's tough for me is, and we're going to see this, I think, in upcoming episodes, is how long it takes, because Frank in the show has been great. So right now it's within that 9-month period. She just lost Jamie, the love of her life. She's
Right.
pregnant with his child. Also, think about the fears that she's not even expressing because she had a stillbirth. You know what I mean? Like, that's people who are pregnant in general are nervous Nellies to begin with. But if you have difficulties and miscarriages and all this kind of stuff, like that really makes you be super nervous during a pregnancy. So I know she's got all that going on.
And let me say too, I get it. Like, I get why she flinched. I get why.
Yeah.
Like, she's just not ready. She's just not there for Frank. My ultimate point is this: Frank loves her, and she does flinch. It's something that it almost breaks them. As little as it is, it's enormous for them, and that's why I feel terrible. That's why I feel like, oh man, Frank, like he can't get it.
And
man.
then she gets after him about sex. And this is what is going to be interesting for us to see in the show, because obviously their relationship is not going to be, roses going forward. And I'm wondering if this is what's setting it up, because Frank in the show seems to be very patient. I mean, he's saying, I can't even touch you. And yet he's doing everything right. Like, let's start anew and we don't need to discuss this. And I want to raise this child as my own. And let's move to a different country so we can start new. And my heart just broke for him. And when she threw that ashtray at his head, I thought immediately of the shed scene when he broke everything and when everyone got after him. Everyone got after him saying, see, this is the Blackjack Randall in him, which there actually isn't any Blackjack Randall, but whatever. This is the Randall in him, and look at that anger. But to me, I was like, he's in a shed. He's not throwing that at anybody. When I get mad, I throw tissues. So if anyone has issues where they want to throw things when they're really mad, get a box of tissues and literally like pull them out one at a time and just throw them. They kind of fly. It's really pretty. But that helps if you feel like you need to throw something. But she threw an ashtray at his head, okay?
Right.
Like, so if we wanted to get after him for breaking things in private, now she's doing this. Yes, she's crazy hormones. She literally she gave birth that night.
Yes.
She gave birth that night.
Not feeling good.
She probably had a ton of, early labor going on that she wasn't telling him about, and she just couldn't take it anymore.
Right.
But I feel bad for Frank in this episode.
You should feel bad for Frank. I mean, Claire even says it to him at the end. I've been horrid to you. And like Frank does in the show, he has a perfect retort, which is, it's okay. It's all in the past. What matters now is what we're doing going forward. Who cares?
Yes.
All that matters is this. You, me, this baby,
Yes.
together. And Claire even says, this is possibly a new beginning for us. This is amazing. Maybe this is a fresh start that we need. And then we have the nurse come in.
Frackin' nurse. How'd you feel about this comment? Where's the red hair come from?
Listen, I go back and forth on it, and I go back and forth on it because of this.
Because we had a red-haired baby?
Yes, and I said, hey, where's that red hair come from?
Yeah, that's what everyone said to us.
When I saw that, when I saw my
Jane
daughter.
Fraser.
And no, and hopefully not the mailman either. No, I have red in my beard, and I think that's where it comes from. But no, I go back and forth because there is this great moment between Claire and Frank. But I mean, let's also be honest here. Things are not cool with the two of them. As much as Frank wants it to be cool, Claire has this experience of going through the Stones, meeting a man that she has fallen madly in love with. He is now dead. Doesn't matter what happened to Culloden. He is dead. No chance. He's not alive. And she's just supposed to forget about it? She's just supposed to move on with her life? I mean, she kind of did that. I mean, which she did and didn't do that with Frank and Jamie. But she's just supposed to move on from the fact that she's just met her soulmate and has a baby? I think it's unreasonable of the viewer to ask that of Claire. Although I think that Claire was being unfair to Frank when she's like, oh, I got to look pretty for the boss. Like,
She wasn't saying that to Frank.
No, she was saying that because the neighbor said that to her.
But I don't think she was being mean about Frank. I think she was talking about women in this day and age have the short end of the stick. I didn't take that as a slight to Frank. I took that as, man, why couldn't I travel to 2017? You know?
Why can't I just be more progressive?
Why do I have to put my mascara on with this weird thing and not Epic Mascara from MinuteWithMary.com? This is some weird newfangled contraption, you
Shameless
know?
plug.
Shameless plug.
No, I think I understand where Claire is coming from. I understand her reticence with Frank. I understand I understand the lack of giving herself back over to Frank. I mean, she just had this whole dealing with Blackjack Randall for that whole entire time. And the guy looks exactly like Frank. I mean, it's probably hard to move on from that. That aside, I still think it's a lot to expect from Claire as a viewer to just let go of Jamie. But you know that things are not cool between the two. And having this woman, this nurse, go in there is a perfect representation of that conflict that's brewing between the two. Yeah, it's great that she gave birth. Yeah, it's awesome that, everything's cool. And yes, maybe this is a fresh start, but let's be honest. It's not. It's just going to get worse, probably. And we have to find a moment to make that work. Again, ratcheting tension up, only to have it deflate, only to bring it back up again at the very end of the episode. It's an indication of what's to come.
You know what? Yeah, okay.
And it's an indication that, yes, we're happy, but not all is not well between the two. Yeah. And maybe it was a little on the nose. Maybe it was a little bit too much of a punch in the face for the two and for the viewers. I get it. But I mean, how else are you going to do it?
You know something that I just thought about. So we're hearing this, where'd you get the red hair? And it's like, dun, 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 like, oh, yeah, this is Jamie's baby. I'm wondering if that was the first moment that Claire realized she had a red-headed lass. Like not only did it remind everybody, oh yes, you're trying to have this happy new family of 3, but Claire had just seen her baby for the first time. She just finds out it's a baby girl. She's so excited. She's looking at the face maybe she hasn't even had a moment to herself to notice this she's known all along. Of course, it's Jamie's baby, but I think it's going to hit me now in a totally different way next time I see it too, because just another reminder.
Right. For
this poor woman who has had such incredibly sad circumstances happen to her. And no, Claire, you can't forget. You can't start anew.
Right.
And to make sure of that, you had Jamie's baby, and we're going to make darn sure you know it, because she's going to have that bright red hair.
And she won't forget it at all.
Oh God.
I
My
think
heart.
I think the interactions between Frank and Claire this entire episode, even as they were walking out of the professor's office, and he's like, "Hey, are you okay?" And she's like, he's like, "Oh yeah, you're just, you're a little, seem like you're a little off." And she's like, "No, everything's fine." It's like so passive aggressive, you know what I mean? It all felt real. Even the anger between the two, when he's like, "Oh, I'm not the only one. I guess I'm not the only person." Or no, I wasn't the person fucking somebody else. So, sorry, we're on Facebook Live.
Yes.
I wasn't the only person. I wasn't the person banging somebody else here. That, I mean, you say that kind of stuff when you're angry, and when you have that kind of visceral anger between the two, you don't necessarily. I mean, how many times have you, the podcast listener, or you, the Facebook Live viewer, ever gotten into a fight with your spouse and said something that you didn't want to say? I've done it.
I've done it too.
Sorry. It's not that you say something because it comes to your brain and it's not fair, it's not right, and you just
they're just so
word
raw.
vomit.
They need therapists.
All the copays.
They need to get a cat because cats are great therapy. When I went through postpartum depression, I got a cat and it helped a lot.
I took Mary to the animal protection.
It would eat
thing.
all the cats, the birds though, so they probably shouldn't get it.
That's
so.
right.
It just breaks my heart. And I guess this is where there's a few more things I want to touch upon Boston, but when I talked about in the beginning of the episode, going through these battles, having the Battle of Culloden, having this battle between Claire and Frank, and just not being able to gel this new life together.
Yep.
And then we get to the end and it's supposed to be this happy new family moment, and it's anything but. It's anything but. And then even for Jamie, who goes home to Lollyrock with his sister and his brother-in-law, his best friend, all this great stuff, but like, it's not home. It's not home. His home is Claire.
Yes.
So I just loved that at the end, how he felt that way for both of them.
Right.
So just a couple more things I wanted to talk about in Boston was
by the way, hashtag not Boston.
Yeah, not Boston.
Not
at
look.
all.
I mean, the apartment looked like it was built.
Yeah.
And looked like an old school Boston apartment.
Yes.
The double parlor and everything that looked like it. I will admit that, but the exteriors, not Boston at all.
I know we've talked we've talked badly about Claire and her interactions with Frank. And to be honest, her interactions with Frank mostly were not great. And when they were okay,
oh my God, the tear,
escalated.
the one tear from Frank.
Frank's tears.
Oh,
Stop it, Frank. Stop pulling at my heartstrings. Claire by herself, Claire without Frank, Claire rocking her female feminist powered self. Yes.
Wanting to snap the professor's neck.
This is the Claire that I love.
That's Claire. That's
my God. Cooking on the fire and being like, yes, I can do this.
Right.
Talking about women being allowed into medical school and just calling him out and talking about the Boston Globe. And you can just tell that she is trying her darndest to shut her mouth, but she's gonna.
When she grabs Frank's hand, you can see her like clench.
Ooh. And I like that Frank was kind of like,
he knew.
He's like,
Oh,
we
he
are
totally
both
knew.
Sassenachs here. This is not okay.
Claire needed to get Sassenach wasted.
She didn't. She can't because she's pregnant.
I know.
No, there were a lot of moments of Claire that I loved. And of course we know because of the trailers and everything that she is going to go to med school. She's going to become a doctor, just from seeing her running in those scrubs. We know that this is what's going to happen. She's laying the groundwork now in the plot right now that we get to see that. So I love that they really set that up. There were three-ish moments, I think, where really it was, here's what's happening with women nowadays, and Claire just shaking her head, saying, I don't do that. I do not do that. And I love Claire for that. She's pregnant. She is mourning her husband. She's mourning her child. She's mourning Culloden.
The whole thing. I mean,
so many emotions.
It's a wonder how she's even able to keep it together at
Yes.
all. I mean, because you have to think of this. I mean, from a normal, rational perspective, can you imagine just, number one, just the sheer act of traveling through time?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. Oh, quick aside. The scene with Jamie as he's remembering back to when Claire disappears through the rocks.
Oh my God, picking up
the shawl and like the whole
smelling it and kind of like holding it. Like he just saw her disappear.
Yeah, like
he literally was holding her hand.
She is gone.
And it's kind of like that just happened.
She's like Back to the Future gone.
Yes.
Like
yes.
I mean,
where we're going, we don't need roads.
Yes.
Right? I mean, Back to the Future like just disappears like Marty McFly's hand. And just the sheer act of going through time, it must screw with you mentally. Never mind the fact that you had a baby, you had a miscarriage with a stillborn baby. You were married to Jamie. You had all these experiences with Blackjack Randall. You tried to change history. Now you're back. You're with a man that looks like Blackjack Randall. You're having your old lover's baby. You're in Boston of all places. You're talking to some. By the way, the misogyny in this episode. Can we calm down a little bit here? Like, wow. Like, I feel like that was a little thick. The guys telling women that.
No, that was that time.
I can't say yes or no. I can't, but I just
You're
feel
just
like
so young.
it was just so
My extra year
thick.
makes me so wise. No.
It was just so thick.
Yeah, because that was the time.
So heavy-handed. Like, God, I wanted it to be a little bit more subtle. The professor was bad, but the doctor was even worse. Like, oh, don't worry your pretty little head.
Right.
Like it'd be one thing if you had a couple of those comments, like just one from the professor and one from the doctor. Then, okay, I get that. That makes sense to me. But it was so heavy-handed. The entire conversations between the doctor and Claire and Frank, and then the entire conversations between the professor, Claire, and Frank.
You know, as a book reader, watching this episode sitting next to Blake, who's just a show watcher, has just shown me a different perspective. And that's why I'm so happy we get to do this podcast, because I know so many people who listen are book readers who've just been able to read it honestly from Claire's perspective. And it's been really interesting for me to feel differently at times with Claire. It's been interesting for me as a woman who's been pregnant, who went through all the different emotions, to have to watch scenes like this. Luckily, I love the man that I'm married to, and I don't have to feel like I'm forcing myself. You know what I mean? That must be such an incredible situation that I think I was able to grasp a bit more in the book, and having to have watched this episode with just with a show watcher who hasn't read the books, who hasn't been able to have Claire's voice. There is no voiceover.
Oh, yes, that's
no voiceover.
right. No voiceover.
So it's been really interesting because, of course, I've got Blake going, oh my gosh, oh poor Frank. I mean, you said that probably 10 times this episode. Yeah. And so it's been really interesting for me to come from this, from girl power, from poor Claire. And of course, we get those moments. We get that moment where she's sitting on the couch, just staring at the mirror, just sitting there. I mean, and just trying to be this wife, trying to light that gosh darn fire in her oven, in her stove, doing all these things. But it was a unique perspective sitting with someone who is just a show watcher. So for those of you who are book readers, who are probably listening to me right now going, why? Why are you saying this? The show has given a unique perspective in this to show how human these characters are. And granted, Jamie is still and will always be king of men. We haven't seen flaws in Jamie, of course, this episode. We've just Jamie's hurt. That's little he could do. But in Claire, we got to see her be just so human and raw.
And I'm happy that we did.
Yeah, and not bad, just
raw,
real and raw. And she's such a heroine. And as you're going to see in this season, for those of you who haven't read this book, she is such a strong, amazing woman. And I am happy to see this struggle that I didn't get to feel when I read the books. I felt it in a different way, and I'm happy to feel this way now because Claire is just such an interesting and strong woman. But to have this, I just wanted to share that.
And as much as I am hashtag Team Frank, and as much as I feel bad for Frank in this episode, and as much as Claire is down on the power rankings for me, I mean, I think she might be a step above the Bonnie Prince right now.
What?
You know how I was saying the power rankings? Yeah. You know, like my favorite. Never mind. I understand that it's raw, and the thing that you have to take out of this episode is that no matter how much I love Frank and how much I love what the show has done with him. And like I said, my man crush on Tobias Menzies knows no bounds. Their relationship between Claire and Frank is fundamentally broken. It's just broken. And what they're doing is they're taking Band-Aids, for each other, and they're slapping it on.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, we're gonna make the best out of this.
They have to. They don't know what else to do right now.
Even Frank says, listen, I didn't force you to come here.
Yeah.
I didn't tell you that you had to come to Boston and you had to do Harvard and you had to do all. You chose this. And you can go. You can stay. Just whatever you do it because you want. Do it because you want to do it. They're fundamentally broken. And any good You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when you're in an argument with your spouse and the argument's over, but it's still kind of weird. You're still kind of like, oh, can I be cool with you right now? Can I not be cool with you? Like they're in a perpetual state of like that weird phase.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like if you got into an argument the night before and you settled the argument, but you wake up the next morning and you're like, hi. And like you try to be cool with them and like, oh, how's the weather today? And it's still bubbling and like it's a perpetual state of like awkward phase.
Yes.
And there you can have good moments in awkward phase. Like, you know, try not to throw the ashtray at the doctor. You know, like that was, or it was my cat-like reflexes that saved me. You know, like good, funny, integral character moments between the two. Mm-hmm. But it's still fundamentally broken. And that is why...
Because he's not Jamie.
Right, and that's why...
He's not her Jamie.
I feel terrible for Frank, but I understand Claire. Mm-hmm. I understand it. Mm-hmm. I don't agree with it, and I think it's very bad, but I understand it. I understand it. I get it. How many times can I say I understand?
Okay, I know. This has been a very long episode. I'm looking at this now.
Yes,
Goodness
it has. I think we're at about an hour and 20 right now.
Okay. Let's get to some listener GBGs.
Okay, let's do it. All right, Marvin, what do you got for the first listener GBG?
Iris Jenkins gives it 5 kilts. It did not disappoint. The good was Jamie and the BJR fight and Rupert's maturity.
Yes.
The bad was the shooting of the survivors and the battle between Claire and Frank. And the great was Claire coming to Jamie on the battlefield.
Totally agree. Brittany Quick says, good was the fights. Amazing job on that. The bad was Claire's birth scene. It really upset me, but I realized that this was the 50s or the 40s now, and that's how they did things. And Rupert's maturity, it broke my heart, but in the best way. And the great was that, oh my God, that last line, where did you get that red hair?
Oh my goodness, it's getting me already. Vicky Johnson said her kilt rating is 4.8. They're off to an awesome start. The good was Rupert's act of forgiveness when Jamie was concerned. Grant O'Rourke gave us a great final turn as our beloved Castle Leon president.
Oh,
yeah, right?
Amazing.
And she writes, hopefully Murtaugh will get a special send-off and more of a flashback. Her bad was didn't care much for the neighbor scene, but loved Claire cooking over the fire. Also, even though I don't know it certainly existed, the misogyny seemed a bit heavy-handed for the single episode.
Thank you.
Just as it was with 213. I am still conflicted with the storylines. Keep switching back and forth. I find it more difficult to focus on the emotions due to each one. That being said, it's still superb. And Vicky says her great was the acting across the board. Frank and Claire's difficulties went from 0 to 60, so at least Jamie isn't the only husband that has to deal with her frustrations and heightened hormones during a pregnancy. Hospital scene was both joyous and gut-wrenching. Sam's understated, resigned to dying acting.
And one thing I do
stellar.
want to say is I really love the fact that we're getting 2 timelines interspersed and intercut throughout each other. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. I love that non-linear storytelling. And that, again, I think that's why I loved that first 5 to 8 minutes of the show, which was just non-linear. It was flashbacks. It was visions. Just stunning. Tanya Royston says, my good was loved the job jumping back and forth between the timelines. Tanya, that's my girl. It allowed me to breathe in between intense scenes on the battlefield and other dinner parties, LOL. Showing how truly unmatched they were against the Redcoats was conveyed brilliantly without having to be linear. The bad was the neighbor in her 1940s Hollywood cadence. Hated it. I was fine with her dialogue since I feel it fit the times to a certain degree. It had informed Claire's present environment. The Redcoat death by grass tuft by Jamie made me say, come on, and took me out of the scene. I liked it too. I thought it was a really cool way for him to kill the Redcoat.
Imagine having that big of a hand that you could grab that much grass. That's a good grip.
Also, I do not believe a Redcoat would have been left on top of Jamie on the battlefield. Great for drama, but no way they would have left a soldier throughout the night, especially an officer. You know, Tanya, I think you're my spirit animal. Really, because like we're on the same page here. Like this is amazing. The great was Rupert stepping up and speaking for the clans, him getting Jamie off the battlefield and forgiving him for all and gave her all the feels. Oh my God, that scene, forgiving him about Dougal. I'm not going to hate you. but God's going to judge us. Oh, fantastic. Claire not biting off her tongue at the dinner party brought me right back to Lord Lovett. You could tell in the moment that Frank understood how Claire was feeling, but as they walked after the party, the differences in Frank versus Jamie connection was so perfectly illustrated. And Frank mentions that she's quiet, whereas Jamie would have smiled or cracked a joke, knowing exactly what he asked of her. And lastly, Jamie in the battle or lying in pain just completely brought you into every scene.
Yes.
Him wanting to die, then being so joyful once he realized he was at Lally Rock was a roller coaster ride that was well worth the wait. I got it. I got the Kendra Thought of the Week. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Hey, Mary and Blake. Well, it's been a long year and a particularly nasty Outlander, but I'm hoping for the best season of Outlander yet, as Voyager is far and away my favorite book of the series. There's a lot to love in this episode, so I'll get right to it. Jamie's storyline in Culloden was just as heartbreaking as it is in the book, and that's a really good thing because we were beaten over the head with it all last season, so we need to feel the weight of it. If anything, it is well earned. While the death of Rupert left me sobbing, there was no more horrifying moment than the nameless red-haired soldier locking eyes with Jamie on the battlefield as he is skewered by the business end of a bayonet. That pretty much sums up the entirety of the conflict right there. Moving on to Boston, and this is one of the things I love so much about Voyager, is the time given to Claire and Frank. It's really, really necessary. We need to see how out of place Claire is here in her own time. Tobias and Kate are so brilliant here, and God, the damage they do to each other. There's a film by the late Anthony Minghella called Breaking and Entering, and there's a visual metaphor which relates really strongly here. The husband and wife in the film are both deeply damaged people, and one scene shows the wife, played by Robin Wright Penn, desperately trying to fit two broken halves of a dinner plate back together. She can't, of course, because little shards flew off when it broke, and the pieces no longer fit. You can fill in the cracks to make it whole again, but the plate forever bears the scar. Going forward, Claire, Frank, and especially Jamie are broken plate people. They can try to get close to others, but their jagged edges don't fit, and they cut each other instead. The only weakness I found was the scene with the Harvard professorial staff. While I don't believe the tone of the patriarchal disdain was misplaced, I really do think it was a little much for the head of the department to so thoroughly dress Claire down in public, especially in front of Frank. Seems like something they might have addressed with him later, like, keep your wife in check, man. But again, I can't fault it too much because we need to see her at odds with her environment. We see that clearly when she resorts to cooking over the fire in the hearth. It's nice to see she credits Uncle Lamb here, so we remember that Claire was a nomad way before she wound up in the 18th century. Lastly, you knew I was going to mention the bird, right? It's a pine siskin, and they are nomadic. They range everywhere, so it's a perfect pairing for Claire herself. The fact that she's watching it tap around outside her window indicates how caged she is. I loved the mirroring of the Faith episode right after Claire comes to after giving birth, and the touching moments between she and Frank before being shattered again by Nurse Buzzkill. Overall, beautiful episode, and I'm going to give it 4.5 kilts.
Oh.
The scene at Harvard really, really pulled it back for me, but everything else was brilliant. The opening montage of Culloden and the fight between Jamie and Blackjack, just incredible. Mm-hmm. I'm really, really, really looking forward to next week, and I will talk to you then. Sayonara from Japan.
That's my girl.
Yay!
Kendra brought up the broken plate imagery here, and they actually have their own imagery in the show. It's the fact that the burner won't work. And Claire, the flame is out. The flame will not be reignited.
Look at you.
And Claire has to revert back to what she did in Scotland for a flame, which is put it over a fire, and there it is, and there's her flame. I mean, thank you, Kendra, for bringing that out. But they did have their own imagery here.
Yes.
And the fact that a modern device, a modern thing
that's supposed to work,
will not work. Just like how she will not let Frank in. Like, oh my God, a perfect representation of that relationship.
Love.
All right, my darling, are you ready for the world famous outlandish theory
Bring it on.
of the week?
Bring it on.
Let's do it. All right, I got a few actually outlandish theories of the week here.
Oh, okay.
So
I'm ready.
Some of these are still in take development. Okay, I'm still developing these takes.
So once again, Blake is just a show watcher. He does not know the future of the books, and so frequently I just kind of stare off into space and say interesting a lot. So if you know the future, keep your mouth shut on Facebook and say interesting with me.
The nerds down the hall are still working with me on this one, so we're still in development. Okay.
Yep.
But I got a few of them. Number one, the neighbor that Claire meets, the lady that I freaking hate, is going to be all over Frank. All over Frank. She is going to be one of these things that gets between she and Frank. The neighbor is going to get between Frank and Claire.
Okay.
And I say that because the neighbor keeps on saying, I hate my husband. He's this and he's that and blah, blah. Like, and she's like, oh, Frank, he's great. You're never going to find another man like him. And she's going to be like all up in that. I got a feeling that's what's going to happen. Or better yet, at the end, well, not at the end, but when they're arguing, Claire says to Frank, oh, there's a bunch of students that would love your English accent. That line to me, yes, it's angry. Yes, it's something that she probably doesn't mean. But I feel like you don't introduce that only to not have it pay off. So I feel like at some point, I don't think Frank is going to step out, but I do feel like there might be an issue that Claire believes that Frank is having with a student or someone that is at the school. So that is my theory on that.
Okay.
Okay, number two, Murtaugh is alive. Murtaugh is alive, and we are going to see him again. Number three, Claire. Claire is totally going to stick it to that doctor that put her out.
Ooh.
Guarantee. When she becomes a doctor, I guarantee you she's probably going to become a maternity doctor. Or what's it called?
OBGYN.
Oh, an OBGYN. I guarantee, putting the Larson guarantee. You know what? I'm just going to put, I'm going to sound it right now.
Bam! Just like that. A winner!
Not only is she going to stick it to that doctor, she's going to take his job. That guy he's like Bonnie Prince. He's going to get it in the head. And I can't wait. I cannot wait for that to happen. So those are my outlandish theories of the week.
Interesting.
Mock me.
Please hang up and try again.
So that is it. That is our first episode.
There you go, guys.
For season 3. And for those of you who have sent in listener feedback, we do have voicemails, we do have emails, we do have all those things. If we can get babysitters this week, we cross your fingers. We're going to do the listener feedback episode and have all of that stuff ready to go. It's just that this episode has now become so fracking long that we can't have a 2-hour episode. We have to go to bed because it's 11 o'clock at night after the premiere. So,
Jeez Louise. Here we go.
It's time. So
final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I'm so happy. I'm so happy that they built on the momentum that they created with the season 2 finale.
Yeah, the finale was extraordinary.
Because, again, you have to look at two things. One, this is the premiere of season 3.
Yes.
You have to start off good. It has to look beautiful. You have to pull out all the stops for the premiere.
Yep.
But also, you have to consider the people that binge watch television. You now, as a producer, as a director, as a showrunner, have to consider the method by which people are now consuming television. So you have to take the momentum that you took from the previous season, and you have to build on it to keep people interested if they're binging. And they have done that. They've done that in spades. One little bit of reticence I have over this season so far is, remember how I told you back in the previous trailer breakdown that the trailer was phenomenal because it was all character based.
Yes.
And that this episode was amazing because it was all character based.
Yep.
The trailer pretty much showed you the first episode.
Correct.
Okay? And I'm not saying that it won't be like this going forward. But I just worry. I worry on two levels. One, when Claire and Jamie go back, when Claire goes back to the future.
Yes.
Who is going to be the antagonist?
Oh my God, you know nothing, Jon Snow.
Right, exactly.
You know nothing.
So
Do you have a theory?
No, I don't have a theory.
Come on.
I don't have a theory.
Oh,
Not
all
yet.
of us book readers are like,
I don't
scheming.
know enough yet. I don't know enough.
Okay.
The problem is I worry that it won't be as personal for the two, for Jamie and Claire
Okay.
as Blackjack Randall was for the
Interesting.
two. I worry that we're just not going to have the emotional investment. I worry that we're going to end up with another Compt. I worry that we're going to end up with the Duke of Sandringham again. Like great actors.
Hold on to your butts.
Right. Okay. I just worry, and I worry that it's not going to be as character based this season. But the show has done nothing this season for the first premiere to show me that it will do otherwise. So I'm willing to go forward with it. I'm willing to keep going and be happy with what they're giving me. And I really do pray to the TV gods that the antagonist for season 3 lives up to Blackjack Randall for not only season 3 but going forward. And it does not dumb itself down to what the Compt and the Duke of Sandringham was. I pray to the gods. That's
Hold on
the
tight,
case.
Spider Monkey.
You, my darling, what is
Hold on
your
tight.
what is your final thoughts?
My final thought is I cannot flippin' wait for you to watch this season.
I'm all in. I am all in on this season.
You are already all in. You gave this episode pretty much a 5.
I did.
As I said, you know nothing, Jon Snow. Hold on to your butts because we're going on a journey, my friend.
Yes.
I cannot wait.
I'm all in. I'm ready. I was saying before, I was excited. I was happy. I was ready for Outlander. Like I miss the podcasts. I miss doing all of this with everybody here in the clan and with the podcast listeners. I miss just talking with you, my darling. But now that I've seen it, I'm ready to go.
Good.
Let's keep it going. Let's build on this momentum. Are you ready to close out this Emmy Award winning episode? Marconi nominated.
Yes.
Pulitzer Prize winning, actually. I just got the Pulitzer in.
I'm so proud of you.
I couldn't believe it. You know, I think we're getting a Caldecott pretty soon too. I got the email. I don't know, but we'll see. Are you ready to close out this
Yes.
Caldecott nominated?
I'm tired. Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. Wow, that was an epic podcast episode for an epic Outlander episode. That was one of the longer ones we've done in a while.
That was, and well deserved. So, ladies and gents, thank you so incredibly much for listening to this episode. You know, one of the best things that you can do for Outlander as a fandom is to tell other people about the show and to tell people about Outlander Cast.
Right.
Show them, if you listen to the podcast, show them how to find it in iTunes, in Stitcher, at outlandercast.com. Tell them to join the Clan Gathering, our exclusive Facebook group. You just go to Facebook and you search the Outlander Cast Clan Gathering. Make sure they follow us on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, because that is where they're not only going to get these podcast episodes or they can watch our Facebook Lives, but we have a stellar blog team pumping out amazing content. We have a hysterical and thought-provoking live blog by our editor-in-chief, Ashley. She's going to be doing it throughout the season. We're going to have some more contributors on it. Nikki as well is going to be doing the live blog, so you can have a 2-screen experience. It's an excellent recap for the episodes. We're going to be having other blog posts throughout each week coming to you, and literally Outlander Cast is your one-stop shop.
Anything, and you can go straight to outlandercast.com to get everything: the social media, the YouTube, the news, the podcast episodes like this, the blogs like we've just talked about, interviews, all of it. It's all at outlandercast.com. outlandercast.com, a newly redesigned outlandercast.com,
Yes.
by the way, may I say. I know biased, I'm totally biased, but it's the prettiest Outlander website there is that the interwebs has to offer. It really is. I can't think of a better one. I can't. I will say, Mary did talk about it. The most important thing you can do is tell a friend that we exist. Tell a friend that Outlandercast exists. Another thing that you can do, it's not as important, but it is quite important, is give us a review on iTunes.
Yeah.
Give us a review. And it's not necessarily because it helps get the word out, and yet it does, but I want to know what you think about the show. I want to know what you think is good, what you think sucks, if you think we can do better, if you just hate me, or if you love Mary. All of those things, please let us know so we can make this a better show for you. And we're here for you. We're here to be a punching bag. We're here to be a shoulder to cry on. We're here to just hang out, and we would appreciate it if you joined in our community, engaged with us like that. I think we're already at 301 reviews, which is amazing, by the way. Is that true?
302. The last one
302.
is Ike, who wrote, Mary and Blake do wonderful work in bringing insight to each episode of Outlander and amazing interviews with some of the actors, writers, and directors. I don't know how they have time to tweet back at me, but I love it. I can't wait to hear their opinions and Blake's predictions on season 3. So thank you so much. And thank you all of you who have written in on iTunes. The only last thing that we want to make sure is that you know about our Patreon community. It's patreon.com/OutlanderCast. You get the podcast episodes early. You get extra little bonus points and extra fun little goodies. And basically, it's your way of helping us support this hobby that has become amazingly exciting and fun, but also a little expensive. So it's a great way to keep the content coming. And thank you. Thank you so much to all of our patrons who have made this possible. You're going to be hearing some of them on podcast episodes this season.
Correct. And because they are amazing and they help make this entire show possible. And another little thing I want to pat myself in the back for here. I am doing a chapter-by-chapter analysis, like I said at the beginning of the this episode. If you do want to hear my take on Outlander the book, and you do want to hear my chapter-by-chapter review, please go to patreon.com, and you can donate as little as $2 a month to hear my chapter-by-chapter analysis. My wife and I, she was a surprise guest on the consummation of Jamie and Claire's
wedding
marriage.
Yeah.
And that was a fun episode. That was a fun episode.
Well, until next time, ladies and gents, I'm Mary Larson.
My name is Blake.
And you've been listening to Outlander Cast.